So you've got those networking events on your calendar. You've decided you're going to go, you've paid, you signed up, but you're wondering, how can I make the most out of that event? How can I really make sure that I'm able to create success? Hi, my name is Tiffanie Kellog, and that is the question that we are here to answer today. How to have a successful networking event. And I am joined by two of my fellow Asentiv facilitators from around the world as we're here to talk about how to have a successful networking event. So I'm Tiffanie Kellog from Tampa, Florida in the United States, joined also by Alvin. You want to introduce yourself, please, Alvin?
Yep. Hello, everyone. My name's Alvin, and I'm based over in Australia and running Asentiv here in Australia.
Awesome. And Phil?
Yeah, hi, I'm Phil Bedford, and I'm based in Dubai. So depending on which way you're listening, there's a delay from Alvin, or he comes early.
I love the fact. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We're really bringing you Asentiv worldwide. You know, we're literally halfway around the world between Alvin and I with our 12-hour difference, and Phil's kind of there in the middle. So thank you, gentlemen. We're here to discuss this conversation of how to have a successful networking event. And so I thought I'd open the floor up and throw it out to you guys to start. What is your ideal when you think of a successful networking event? What success mean to you?
Well, it's rare, isn't it? Because a lot of the time you go to these networking events and you walk away with nothing. And I think it's because of the perception that when you go to a networking event, you actually don't network. You go to the event to gain something. You might want to sell something, or you have got butterflies in your stomach, thinking that you're going to walk away with, with that lead or that key contact that you've been searching for, and it mostly never happens.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, so just backing up what Alvin's saying there, it's one of the things I'll do whenever I'm running an event is to try and educate people before they come. This is what success looks like. This is where you can go wrong based on what we know. And this is how you can increase the chances of success. So I'll often send them a little link saying this is what successful networking is. And, the amount of time, I remember being at an event in Dubai, and a guy walked in and I could see him stick his head around the corner, and I had about 40 people in the room, and I could see him go, nah, and he turned around and walked off. And I'm there thinking, that's the perfect number. But obviously he was looking for 300 people so he could come in and do that, not realizing that there's no way he'd ever get around 300 people.
But Phil, he was probably thinking, if I'm right, he was probably thinking that I've got 300 business cards in my pocket and I can get the most bang for my buck if I pass those business cards to everyone at the event.
Well, if he had 300 in his pocket, he's probably walking like John Wayne for his start, so you're not going to catch him out like that. But yeah, I mean, that's the mistake a lot of people make, isn't it? I mean, they just machine gun the business cards, and
I've actually got a rule on business cards, and this I mean, I tell this to people, and they can choose to listen to me, but it's certainly a rule that I follow, and it's always to pass your business card second. So never be the first person to produce a business card at a networking event. And that way, then you're not pushing your details down someone's throat. You ask them for a business card because you're interested in the conversation, or you might want to act on something that you've talked about. So you then ask for the business card. You may want to write on the back of it, or make a short note. And then after you've asked for the business card, then what happens then? They would turn around and say, oh, do you have a business card? Can I have yours? And then you produce your own one. So it's a little, it's not a trick. It's just courtesy, really, because you're not there to sell to them. You're just there to pass contact details if the opportunity arises to further something afterwards.
I think you've hit something on the head then. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking that handing out business cards is networking. And handing out business cards is not networking, it's handing out business cards. Networking is what happens afterwards. And the business card is purely a means to gauge an idea of what they do and then have the details to get in touch afterwards, right? But people think they've done the thing. I'll never forget in Dubai at an event, and I'm standing there, right? I'm not joking. A guy gets his business card, and I'm standing there by the table, and he throws it on the table. I'm not joking. And by the way, in this part of the world, that's super rude. and as he throws it on the table, and I just knew he was just waiting for me to pick it up and go, stop. I need to buy from you. You're going to save my life. And if people just don't realize, what am I going to do with a card that someone just threw on the table?
But that's what people think when they think of a networking event. They go, I need to go to a new networking event, or I need to go to 3 or 4 networking events in order to gain more business. And really, the way I look at a networking event is that if I am attending, my number one goal is to find an opportunity for someone else, and they may be in the room or they may be in my network who aren't in the room, outside the room. So I'm all the time looking for opportunities for someone else. And if something lands in my lap and I get an opportunity then to, have a flavored answer on the question, what do you do for a living? Then I'll progress it. But my number one aim is to look for business for someone else. And that's what networking is.
Love that. I do want to say Brat shared, he agreed, Phil, with your point. So Brat, thanks for your comment. He is coming to us from India as another Asentiv facilitator. And as you're out there watching, if you have questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, or not the chat, the comments, wherever you're at. And we'll take care of that. A funny story one time with this whole passing out cards. I like to call it in-person spamming. If you give me your business card and I didn't ask for it, you just spammed me. We don't like it on email. We don't like it in person. And one day I was at an event doing something and somebody walked up to me and they handed me their business card. This was not premeditated. I don't know why I did it. I was like, thank you. And what would you like me to do with this? And the look on the guy's face was like, I mean, he couldn't, and Jason Avery, who some of you know, he's one of our Asentiv facilitators for the Roomful of Referrals program. And my husband happened to be standing like 3 feet away from me, and I just hear them cracking up. But I was like, the guy just walked up and randomly handed it to me, and I'm like, why?
Tiffany, I now have an answer when people do that to me. I had somebody give me their business card and then give me a promotional pen.
Oh.
I would have loved to have said, now what would you like me to do with this?
What I laugh about is when, at least gentlemen, y'all have pockets. So you can put the stuff in your pockets. Women's clothing, whoever makes it, it doesn't have pockets most of the time. So when somebody gives you that pen or that catalog or that flyer, it's like, what am I supposed to do with this? Yeah. And I think it's a big part of this networking disconnect. People think I'm going to go to a networking event and sell. I think you were mentioning that earlier, Alvin. I want to get those leads, but most people don't go to a networking event to buy. And so we've got that.
I think it also depends on what sector of professionalism we're talking to here. Because, I remember being in a taxi from Moscow Central to Moscow Airport, and I was in the taxi with a lawyer. And she was asking me, what do you do at Asentiv? And I was sharing what we normally do, which is obviously working with entrepreneurs primarily, but obviously other business people as well, to show them how to get clients, show them how to, get all the resources to grow a business. And she turned around and went, oh, wow, networking to get clients. I've never thought about that. And I said, well, why? What do you network for? She went, oh, I just network so I can get my next job when this one finishes.
Wow.
So my realization was, a lot of people, when they work in big corporates, network to find their next job. They don't network to find clients. And so sometimes we make this big assumption that everyone's networking for clients when they're not. And that's why we often see people from corporates networking sat with their friends because they don't really know what networking's for. They don't see the benefit. So I think we sometimes assume people are just after clients and they could be there for other stuff. So the question, and this goes back to what you were saying, Alvin, I think is, you need to decide when you go into a networking event, number one, what you're there for.
Yeah.
What are you looking to achieve? And by the way, it could be to find information. It could be to find your next job. It could be to find this, someone that can help you with the kids' tennis classes. It could be to find a client. But the point is, and this is further to what Alvin was saying, if we know what we're going for and we get that, well, that's a win. But if we don't get that, that could be a lose. But if you've got Alvin's mentality here, which is, hey, while I'm there, I'm also going to see how many people I can help. Well, you're going to win, win, win. It's like a pinball machine. You've got win, 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 win. Whereas if you're only looking for yourself, you win or lose. Finish.
Yeah, but lots of people go into these networking events with that approach, though, Phil, and that's the disillusionment. Here's another thing, though, that you can do, and a story I've got of a networking event I went to here in Perth, is just to be conversation ready, when you get there, so that you can ask the intro question, you can hold a conversation, or you can just be present in the conversation and know what they're talking about. And I realized that here in Australia, I didn't actually know a lot of Irish people, so I wanted to network more in the Irish community. So I checked out what events were on, and sure enough, there was a gang of Irish pubs that held events. So I rocked up to this event, and well, here's a question to ask you. Do you think I'd be conversation ready going into a room full of people that are Irish people, into a bar with a load of Irish people? Well, bear in mind, I've been out of the country now for about 7 years. So I wasn't up to speed with the politics. I wasn't up to speed with the sport. I wasn't up to speed with where the country was. I just wasn't detailed enough, and I wasn't confident holding a conversation. So when I drove up to the event, by the way, that was the first mistake. I drove to the event. The second, the thing I did before I went in was I spent 6 minutes, and now I hold myself to this, do 6 minutes of research before you walk in the door. And I just scanned the newspapers, I scanned the sports pages, I scanned it was a heavily sort of construction and building sort of audience. So I just scanned all those topics so that I wasn't a numpty when I went into the conversations, and I was able to maybe ask a question and have a little bit of familiarity around the topic. So being conversation ready gives you a little bit of confidence when you go into the event. And it may help with people that are a little bit shy or a little bit worried about going in and not having that ammunition with them.
So I think I love the idea of like being prepared when you go into the event, because I know networking nerves is something that a lot of people deal with. So I love this idea. Okay, let me do some research. Let me do some pre-game activity. So, it sounds like Alvin's got his research going on. One of the things I like to do pre-game is to come up with my goals, whether that's how many referrals I generate for others, how many connections I'm looking for. So setting the goal helps me out. Phil, do you have a pregame tip for us to help us create success in networking? Or do you want to approach it from a perspective of like, what's one of those ways of dealing with networking nervousness?
Yeah, I mean, oddly enough, what a lot of people don't know about me is I'm actually not comfortable walking into a room of a lot of people. In fact, I don't like rock concerts. I don't like anything where there's tons of people. So actually networking, I'll be quite happy sat in the corner. So it's something you learn, right? And one of the things I learned years ago was if you are really nervous, well, how about going early when there's no one else there? Go early when there's just you and the organizer, and the organizers, and a lot of introverts like to help people, right? Or they just like to be in a little bit more control. So if there's only you and the organizer there, and the organizer often needs a little bit of help, so you can jump in, help them put stuff up, have a nice quiet chat, so you get to know the organizer. And number one, people start to come in, and so you'll then start to meet people. And of course, if it gets to the point where there's too many and you're uncomfortable, you can leave. But it's a lot easier to build up to that number than just walk in.
Yeah. That's a great point.
And the other benefit, of course, is who's the most connected person in the room? So if you've just spent time with the most connected person in the room and you've just helped them when they're probably in a rush because they're running late, like most people are, you're going to be, you're going to be the one they know.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Get there early, and then it's like the frog in the pot, isn't it? You turn the tap up, and eventually. So that's a very good idea. Just get there early. Yeah.
Love it. That's awesome.
How about taking somebody with you?
Yeah, I love the idea of tag team networking.
Yeah, that's something that we talk about in Asentiv, is to buddy up with someone and to take a partner with you. But the best way for you to get your best ally is just to bring them with you and let them hang with you, or divide and conquer. You look for business on one side for them, and they look for business on one side for you, and you can just refer each other there and then. A great way to actually be able to give goals to each other, and then say at the end of the meeting, I'm going to refer you to 3, or I'm going to introduce you to 3 people in this event. So another way of you not going into a room and selling, your own wares, you're promoting and looking for opportunities for someone else. So, but buddying up is very, very productive.
And I like the idea of this buddying up. And I want to stay with the person because, like Phil, I'm a hardcore introvert. Most people don't think of it, but I'm shy. I don't want to do that. Yeah, I don't like to do the rock concerts, all the massive people. I like this virtual world behind the computer. I don't have to do open networking and talk to strangers. We're going to talk about virtual in a minute. However, what I like to do is find somebody that's really outgoing, that loves to, kind of have some fun. And so from a behavioral style standpoint, so we do the Room Full of Referrals program offered by Asentiv. I'm a go-getter promoter, but my go-getter is much higher. And so I'm more of the introverted side of it. And so I like to find me a promoter that wants to talk to everybody, never met a stranger that they don't love yet. And so I like to partner with them because I can help keep them focused and actually get around and meet people. Well, they're the ones that are going to go up and randomly talk to all the strangers. And I find most entrepreneurs find it easier to talk about others than about themselves.
It's actually interesting. I like this whole concept of, two people going together, particularly if you're referral partners and you have the privilege of also being each other's clients. Now, that's a dream. That's a dream, isn't it? When you're referral partners and you've been each other's clients, because what you can also do is then introduce the other person and say how great they are. How much easier is it to introduce someone else than sell yourself? And what you end up finding is you do, oh my God, they're so great. They do this. And of course they go, funny you should say that because they did this for me. And all of a sudden it's just really fresh, whereas everyone else is normally selling and the whole energy changes. Now you turn that around and you got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of you who all network really well together, all know each other inside out, and you're all in the same networking event. Now what you've got is super networkers running around going, watching out for opportunities for each other. And I always describe it as like one of these, Tiffanie, I know you're a sci-fi buff, right? So you have some of these sci-fi films and like, it's all frozen in time, right? And everybody's frozen in time except for like the aliens walking around, right? And I think networking with Asentiv clients who all know each other inside out is a bit like a sci-fi film because everyone else is stuck selling themselves. Yeah. And what you've got is all these people who know each other so well that what they're doing is introducing each other left, right, and centre, looking out for each other. And it's almost like everyone else is stuck in time. And it's like, someone described it for me once as, I have to try and remember what it's called now. Stealth networking. I think it was very good. Miley Coleman once called it stealth networking, and it's stuck in my mind.
I love that. So we talked a little bit about how to deal with the networking nerves. We do have a Facebook user. Sorry, it doesn't say who the Facebook user is. You can go to restream.io/Facebook, and it will set you up so we can see who you are in the future. But the Facebook user says, reaching early is a great relief for the host. They're excited to meet people, and they often need a little bit of help. So we've talked a little bit about, we don't want to sell when we go to a networking event. That's not what we're doing. At Asentiv, our goal is to take it to the next level. And so one of the things a lot of people talk about is, okay, well, what do I say? How do I introduce myself? How do I talk about myself at a networking event? And all the time people are like, okay, here's the right formula for your elevator pitch. But to me, the problem with saying, here's your elevator pitch is an elevator pitch is about selling. But we've talked quite a bit about networking isn't necessarily about selling. So how do we introduce ourselves at a networking event?
That's such a great question. And it's a flavored answer is what you need. What is your flavored answer when somebody asks you the question? It's probably the most asked question, apart from how are you, is what do you do for a living? And typically people will go, I am and then, fill in the blank. And you see what happens is when you say that, let's just say I'm an accountant, and I'll answer the question of what you do for a living by I am an accountant. Immediately, the person who asked you that question is now filtering through their mind going, I don't need an accountant. Now what do I do? Oh, he's going to talk to me about being an accountant. Oh, he started. Now how do I get out of this conversation? And that's all they're thinking of. So you're actually doing yourself harm in a networking situation by answering that question with that formula. So just don't use it, and there are several ways, and you'll probably hear them here, but there are several ways of how to get the best response from that. And I've got loads of really good ones that I use, but I would definitely advise not to use your standard I am a whatever.
We don't want to lead with our profession because then it just puts us in a box like everybody else.
I think everything Alvin says is absolutely valid. And there's the other thing, of course, is I think people can only really understand, particularly if you have a highly technical job or something that's a little bit difficult to understand based on their model of the world. And so often one of the first questions should be to actually understand what they do. And then you can explain what you do based on what they can understand. So just as an example, for example, Asentiv can work with entrepreneurs, right? That's our core thing is entrepreneurs. So if I'm talking to an entrepreneur, you might target your answer based on what their model of the world looks like, which is surviving as an entrepreneur, this problem, that problem. But if I'm talking to someone who's a sales manager, well, then what I would do in the world that they would understand would be completely different. It would be in terms of, well, how do you increase sales for your sales team? So often I think what you talk about has to depend on who you're talking to. So first of all, make sure you understand, what they do in their world. And then, turn around and say, okay, well, when you're a sales manager and you've been told to hit your targets and your team aren't producing and they're sat there on their chairs waiting for things to happen. Well, what if I could show your team how to go out and get their own leads? Well, that's what I do. Well, if I'm talking to an entrepreneur, it would be, well, when you launch your new business and suddenly you've got no money to spend on advertising and marketing, and suddenly you're all alone and it's like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And the guy goes, yeah. Well, what we do, and so I think your answer to what you do is often has to be targeted based on what their thing is, so they can understand. Because one of our other jobs is to make sure that we're memorable and that they walk away going, I know what they do.
An easy way to remember that, Phil, is just to remember question, answer. So someone asks you a question, you reply with a question, which is exactly what you just did. And then you answer your question because they've asked you to answer it. So now you've got a bit of permission, in that formula, and you've got a bit of permission to go in, however deep you want to. Another one I use, Phil, and I think I might have learned this from you actually, is I will say to somebody, the best way for me to explain what I do is maybe to just go through the success story I had last week with a current client of mine. And that current client might or might not be in the same industry or the same profession as the person I'm speaking to. And I'll give them a live, recent success story that I've had. And then it kind of, it's an easier way to relate it back to them. And that's not me going straight in, sort of giving them facts and figures and stuff. I'm actually giving them an end result that a client's had. So that's another way of answering it.
I love success stories.
I must have thought of that one, Alvin. Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely me.
I love success stories. And I think even if we don't get into the success stories when it's kind of like, hey, here's what I, do. If at some point in time during the conversation, I'm all about mirroring, asking questions, and hopefully they'll ask you the question in return. And so it could be you ask, hey, what's an amazing client success that you've had lately? And then hopefully they'll ask you in return, okay, what's an amazing one that you've had? Because I think those client success are probably one of the most powerful pieces that we have in our arsenal to help when we're networking.
We're 70% reciprocal. Or 70% reciprocal. So if you do ask somebody something, they're going to, they're likely to ask you the same question back. So,
and to me, if they don't ask me the same question back, then they didn't care.
Yeah, but do you know what I love about what Tiffanie just did there is 90% of people out there, when you ask them what they do, they go into a whole technical diatribe of what they do. And as a human being, if you don't find yourself falling asleep after 30 seconds, I'd be surprised. And that's with the best intentions. But when someone starts getting too technical and you don't understand, you do just switch off. So what I love about what you just did there actually is just telling them, when you say to them, please just give me a success about a problem a client had and what you did. You're actually giving them a really simple way so that you can understand what they do, despite what they understand about networking. I think that's a beautiful little, that's really nice. I'm going to steal that. I'll use it 3 times and then it's mine.
Well, it's one of those things. One of the things I love about the Asentiv community that we're in is we have people from around the globe doing this, and we get together and share, whether it's at conferences or online, our ideas, so that it's not only like, here's what Tiffanie has, it's here's what Tiffanie has that's bolstered by what Phil and what Alvin and what all of these other people do, and vice versa. I know what I've learned from, being an Asentiv facilitator over the last 15 years. Wow, that's a long time. Over the last 15 years is definitely, here's what we have, but it's also so much from the other people on the team. So it's super exciting to be able to be here today with some of those folks as we share, so we can all be better in helping our clients have that amazing business and spectacular life. Now, I want to talk about what to do after a networking event, but I do also want to answer this question of how do you introduce yourself? I'm a huge fan of the funneling conversation. And I've got like a full video on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube, put in Tiffanie Kellog funneling conversation, It'll walk you through what it is, how do you use it, what are some examples. I like using it because it's me asking the person I'm talking to questions to determine, are they a good referral source for me? Are they a good prospect for me, or neither? And in less than a minute, I've determined, what the opportunity is, at least from those perspectives. And then I can go on to, can I refer them to somebody in my network? Can I invite them to something else? How can I offer them support? Okay. I think the last question I've got two questions, but the last one's an easy one. Like, how do people find you? That's coming. But so I think that we've talked about how to have a successful networking event, but I don't know that it's what happens during the networking event that makes it the most successful. There is something key that we have to do after the networking event. I think if we just go to the networking event and that's it, we're missing an opportunity. So how do I create success? What do I do after the networking event?
Oh, this is the bit where Alvin says he wished he hadn't driven, right? No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I haven't. I've stopped driving to those events now, but not for the reason you just mentioned there. Well, look, the obvious answer here is following up, and here's the thing: forgetting about how soon do you do it, or what you say when you do it. You've got to have a way of recording this stuff. If you don't have a method like a CRM system, or it doesn't have to be fancy. It can be just something basic. If you don't, you're going to lose. You're going to lose details. You're going to lose opportunities. You're going to forget the conversation that you had. So you just got to have a method of following up. And my response to following up is immediate. I'm a big believer in getting back to people promptly. Immediately. It also means that I don't have to do something 2 or 3 days down the line. And automation, don't be afraid of automation as well. It might be getting a little bit too technical, but I think first off, you've got to have a method to actually capture all the details and then pump it in somewhere so that you can follow up effectively.
Yeah, and I think with this idea of immediately, I often talk to people like, well, I did the networking event, but I don't have time to follow up. To me, when I'm putting the networking event in my calendar, I'm also putting the follow-up time in my calendar to ensure that I have both time to network and that time to follow up. Yeah,
there's no point in going otherwise. I mean, arguably, if you don't follow up, you're not doing the
You would not believe how often I've been on a networking event, and recently on Zoom. I know you're going to come to that in a minute. And I've had people on there ask, "This is the one thing that will change my life right now," and it's been literally, I need help. And you can see how desperately I said, I can help you. Contact me afterwards.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Birds. Yeah. Nothing. I'm the same, Phil. Yeah, I was just about to say that. And I lead it out there. I mean, if I can help them and I don't really know them, they're in that visible category or even invisible category, I'll say to them, look, I've got some contacts that will be awesome clients for you. You should get in touch with me. And then they don't hear. You don't hear from them. Just recently I did that at an event, and I actually identified, I wrote down on a piece of paper 8 or 9 people that I could refer to this guy. Didn't hear from him. I mean, is that bonkers? What's the point in going to the event? No. If you don't follow up.
And I think for ourselves, one of the things I learned, and particularly now, is you have a filtering. By the way, your funneling conversation in this region, they call it a filtering system.
Love it.
But you can almost have one for the people you meet at the networking event, right? So you've got your really hot ones who might be people you just want to follow up because they've asked you to be in touch because they need your service, and it does happen, right? And then we've got the ones who might be a good golden goose or a contact, or then there's the ones that you can help, whatever. You categorize the people, but then you're going to have the people on the end that, well, there was nothing really, right? But so whatever you do is you follow up based on whatever your discussion was or what you agreed to. So whatever it is, but you start, obviously my hands are a bit weird here, start with the one that's the hot and then you go that way. But even at the other end, you still connect on social media and say, lovely to meet you, or drop them an email and say, nice to meet you. 9 times out of 10, they'll never get back in touch. But the thing is, you've left a nice gesture there if it's by email. And if you connect on social media, and at least if they connect back, well, then you're expanding your presence online, which doesn't hurt. And so you should always be following up, whether it's direct, social media, or whatever. You somehow connect with them when you meet. And always, and I know you're going to say it, follow up in an appropriate manner. If they didn't ask for your details of what you do, don't send it. follow up in the manner that your conversation was left at and whatever you agreed to.
Yeah. And try and agree something there and then is another thing. If you're having the conversation, you may say, Phil, look, I've got something for you and I think we should further this conversation. It's probably not the right environment here. Let's set something up. I'll contact you tomorrow or the next day or whatever, and we'll organize something. And then just follow through with that. You're giving yourself permission to get in contact with the person you're speaking to get some results.
Yeah, I think it can be easy. If we go ahead and book the meeting while we're at the networking event for the next contact, then it removes some of the stress of the follow-up, and we've got that we're having happen. Yeah. All right, so we're here. We've been chatting. We could probably go for another 3, 4, 5, 6 hours just talking about how to have a successful networking event, but that'd be a really long video. And our goal is no more than 30 minutes, and we're at that. So if you have other questions about networking, do let us know. We would be happy. We're going to get together again and have some conversations. So if you have some specific questions we can answer, we'd love to hear from them. For the viewing audience out there, so we are with Asentiv across the globe. If people are looking to get in touch with you, how do they find you, Alvin, and then Phil?
Google Asentiv Australia. You can get me on the socials. Obviously, it's very easy to find people now socially. So Alvin Cooney on pretty much all the platforms. Or just Asentiv Australia, you'll find the website and go from there.
Awesome.
Yeah, so my best one really is, I'm on LinkedIn, obviously Phil Bedford. So you can either type in Phil Bedford or the Rebel Networker in Facebook and all that, or I have my own website, which is therebelnetworker.com. And so obviously you can go through the Asentiv way, but the more personal one is obviously the quicker way, which is LinkedIn.
And I'm Tiffanie Kellog, and I'm going to throw everybody's names up there so you can see how they're spelled in case you haven't seen that. I want to say thank you all so very much for being here with us today as we scratch the surface on this topic of how to be successful at networking events. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I look forward to seeing you soon. Happy networking, y'all.